What is going on YouTube? Gabons here and welcome to the 14th episode of the Tech Pills Weekly live stream. Let's jump right to the first news of today. Ubuntu 20.04 is releasing with a new feature, a flicker-free boot experience. Now, what am I talking about here? We typically call flicker-free boot the thing that basically makes your boot experience when you first start up your PC seamless from when you press the power button to when you get to the login screen. So basically what happens on Windows currently, that you have like the logo of whatever vendor your computer is, and then you get like a loading bar or a spinner in the middle of the screen showing you that's the thing is actually booting. And we've had this thing in Linux for quite a while. In fact, Red Hat initially started working on it with using the Plymouth boot animation that you have in Linux. And Plymouth is really nothing new. It's been around for a very long time at this point. And they used what they already had and improved it, so that you have a loading screen with that keeps the vendor logo in place whenever the computer boots up. And we typically refer to this as flicker-free boot. Now, Red Hat initially worked on it, and Fedora, as far as I know, pioneered it in one of the later releases. I think it was Fedora 30 or something like that. And it was really kind of interesting. It was the first time in Linux we had something like this. And then since I saw it on Fedora, I had to try it myself in Arch, and that's basically what I did. And I actually made a YouTube video about it. You can find it on my channel, experiencing both the installation process and the configuration in Arch, which was admittedly quite simple. The only hoops you had to jump through were about the fact that some packages you need to get from the AUR because they were not officially available from the Arch Linux repositories. But aside from that, the installation and configuration experience was basically flawless. In the video, I referred to the fact that I didn't really get the completely flicker-free boot. That was because I needed to, I skipped a step there, so whatever. But anyway, if you watch my video, you'll probably find out how to enable it for yourself in your distribution, depending if you can adapt the tutorial from Arch to another distro. I think you can. It's pretty easy. And besides, most distributions already have Plymouth pre-installed, so whatever. Anyway, it's great to see that we now have this feature in Ubuntu 20.04, because while I don't really care myself for Ubuntu that much, I understand that being one of the biggest, if not the most popular Linux distribution out there, having manufacturers ship with Ubuntu pre-installed and having such a seamless and, well, let's say it, visually appealing experience from the boot up to the login screen is actually something I somewhat care about. Typically in the Linux world, we don't really care about this stuff, but again, it makes for a more cohesive and overall cleaner experience. So I'm happy that Ubuntu finally jumped to the flicker-free boot as well. So, next news for today, Half-Life Alyx will support Linux. Finally, we have the confirmation that this is happening. So if you're not aware, the long-awaited sequel of Half-Life 2 and Half-Life 2 Episode 1 and 2, respectively, so long-awaited, in fact, that it became a meme, and it's such an old meme at this point, the newer generation probably don't even know about it. I'm talking about Half-Life Alyx again, releasing March 23rd, so just 3 days from the day I'm streaming this, will officially come to Linux. We have a statement from Valve quoting, "Post-launch will be aiming to provide Vulkan and Linux support through subsequent updates." So that's actually great news, that they're still caring for us Linux users, and it definitely shows that, I mean, they actually care. Not that there were many doubts about it. I mean, thanks to Valve with things like Proton and the XVK, which really changed the landscape for Linux gaming, at least as far as I'm concerned. But I mean, since they announced Half-Life Alyx, and they initially announced it as a Windows-only release, so people rightfully started doubting the amount of care that Valve put into Linux, into the whole Linux ecosystem and platform. So I mean, I'm grateful that they finally got their head around announcing a proper Linux version of this game. I won't be playing it, unfortunately, because I don't have a VR headset. And yeah, if you don't know, this new game, this new Half-Life game is gonna be VR only. So if you don't have a compatible VR headset, you're probably not gonna play it, right? Anyway, those things still cost too much, in my opinion. That's most of the reason why I still don't have one. At some point, probably, maybe, possibly, I'll have one. But anyway. Also, another great game release that I've been expecting is finally here. I'm talking about Doom Eternal, the latest chapter of the Doom reboot series that started with Doom 2016. It was probably the game that pioneered Vulkan as far as mainstream game development goes. It's one of the best games I honestly ever played. It's not all that great. I mean, possibly if you compare it to classic Doom, that game still has kind of a lot of more depth into it, if you will. But still, for what it is, it's a great AAA game. And one of the best things about it is that since it's been developed in Vulkan, and it's been very well developed as far as I'm concerned, it's one of the best performing games out there, even on lower end hardware. And I've seen this thing running on low power APUs, as well as my ultrabook laptop with an Intel integrated graphics card. And that thing, I mean, it's able to run Doom at a playable frame rate, which is impressive by itself. And it really goes to show how well technically the game was actually made. And now we have the new chapter of this game, and I'm so excited about it. But it's $60, and I'm not gonna buy it until the price lowers, even if just slightly. It's cost too much for me, particularly right now. But anyway, it's officially just compatible with Windows, but because it will be using, well, it does use Vulkan, it is probably 90% compatible with Linux. So I haven't yet seen any ProtonDB reports for it, maybe because it literally just came out today, but I'm expecting to see some pretty soon. So really excited about this new game release. Will probably buy it at some point and play it for myself. I literally can't wait. Alright, let's move on to the next news of today. Intel makes it clear what Clear Linux is. I know. It was a bad pun. But anyway, this is a real story. So, we're probably all familiar with Clear Linux. It's the Linux distribution that Intel maintains. And it's always been kind of a weird thing, if you ask me, because it's not based on anything. And in benchmarks, it performs very well to the point of surpassing any other Linux distribution, at least in Phoronix, in tests done by Phoronix. If you don't know what Phoronix is, just go to phoronix.com. It's a great news site centered around Linux and hardware and low-level stuff. It's very interesting. But anyway, as far as I know, Clear Linux hasn't really had any real widespread adoption out there. And it's interesting, and it's weird in a way, because it's one of the best performing, at least on the paper, Linux distributions out there. So you would expect people to care more about it, but they actually don't. And probably most of the reason why they don't is because it's not really 100% ready for, wider desktop or even server adoption. And one of the reasons is the lack of third-party software and the lack of custom repositories and stuff like that. So it's been really weird that Intel has had this distribution around for so long, and yet they are missing such basic features and things that you would expect from any distribution out there. But anyway, recently we got a statement from Intel fellow Arjan van de Ven. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Anyway, so what they are saying is that, just in a nutshell, Clear Linux is kind of a platform for developers for experimenting with general Linux development, performance tuning, optimization, and stuff like that. And it's understandable from their side, as they say, quoting, we Intel work with many Linux distros pretty intensely on hardware support and performance and many other things. So it's understandable that they have to have some platform onto which to test and to experiment what they are doing in other distributions out there. And they are one of the biggest contributors to the wider Linux ecosystem. Possibly the kernel is possibly one of their biggest contributed projects. Anyway, what they're trying to say here is that basically Clear Linux makes for not more than an internal toy for developers, so to speak, to know what works and what doesn't in a Linux distributions, and to have a certain know-how that you can only have if you maintain your own distro. And that's very understandable, and that's very very nice that they're I don't want to say they're clear on it, but I'm saying it. So anyway, the thing is, they're still actively working on it. I mean, it's a full-fledged distro. It lacks some things, but again, they're working on it. They're trying to incorporate, right now they're working on trying to incorporate third-party and proprietary packages into the system via community managed third-party repositories, which is very very interesting, particularly since they openly said that they don't want to maintain packages that they don't care for, namely 15 plus desktop environments or something like that. That's what the guy said. And all right, so let's try to draw some conclusions here. At this point, I still don't think that anyone is actively looking to run Clear Linux as their daily driver. I mean, again, on paper, it's so much better on many things, but really, you can get most of the advantages of Clear Linux by using like different custom kernels, doing the same optimizations that Clear Linux is doing. And I plan on experimenting on that myself in the near future, as there is an Arch package, which is basically the Clear Linux kernel with some other goodies in it. So I'll probably try it out for myself, but I don't expect that much of a difference, to be honest. The most important thing is that I certainly never saw it and still don't see it as a proper replacement for my current or any other popular distro out there. So there's that. I think that Clear Linux will be relegated to being a niche distro for developers for experimenting with new stuff and all that kind of things. Aram says hi in the chat. Hi, thanks for joining. So moving on to the next news. Shortwave, the internet radio GTK app, got its first stable release. So you probably, if you like internet radio, you're probably familiar with G Radio. And G Radio has now, for quite a while now, been abandoned because the developer has been working on a completely new version of it and built completely from scratch that's called Shortwave. And this is it's practically the successor to G Radio. It's written in GTK and I think Rust, probably. Can't say right now because the Planet GNOME website is down. But anyway, I think it's written in Rust. But whatever. It's one of the best applications I've used. In terms of the feature set, the care put into it, and the overall design and functionality of it. And if you like, again, if you like internet radio, you should really try it out for yourself. The feature highlights include a full responsive design. So if you have one of those new fancy Linux phones, you can probably run this on your phone as well, and it just be great. Automatical song detection and download. So using the metadata received from the radio station, it automatically detects which song is playing when it starts and automatically records it for you to be able to download it on demand, which is pretty great. It also has support for the Google Cast protocol, so you can cast your radio from either your Linux-powered phone or your computer to a Chromecast-enabled device. I hope they will include some more open standards here, but still, this is a pretty handy feature. They also have access to a huge database of over 25,000 radio stations around the globe. So your favorite radio station is probably there already. It also has system integration, particularly with GNOME. It has MPRIS support, so that you can have in your notifications panel some system shortcuts for play, pause, next, previous, and so on. Of course, you can have these controls outside of GNOME as well if your desktop environment has some kind of applet for MPRIS support. So, Shortwave, again, is available on FlatHub for you to download it right now. So, great work to the developer, Felix Hacker. And thanks for this awesome app. Moving on to the next news, Fedora 32 will release with early OOM by default for better low memory behavior. And this is actually something that's quite interesting. I've been following this pretty closely myself. So what am I talking about here? What's early OOM? What's even OOM? So let's start from the beginning. What happens when you run out of memory on your system, out of RAM? Well, what should happen is that the kernel should kill the process that's consuming the most memory. In reality, when this happens, if this happens, it's already too late. The swap is full, system is unresponsive, and you're left to just force rebooting to do anything on your computer, really. And it happened to me a couple of times, mostly when I had some pretty intensive workloads. So there's not really a built-in solution for this problem. At least in the vanilla Linux kernel, you cannot tune the behavior or the configuration of the OOM killer, or out of memory killer, which is the part of the kernel that is responsible for killing the most memory consuming process when you're out of RAM. Because what happens is that the kernel tries to, if it lacks memory, it tries to put everything in swap. But since the swap gets full and other processes, including the GUI in the desktop environment, need to run at all times, it plays this game of putting things in the swap and putting back out into the memory and putting some other things back in swap, and just gets crazy. And the OOM killer doesn't even get called ever, because for it to be called, you should be 100% in the memory and in the swap, and that's pretty rare. And even if it happens, your system will already be unresponsive before anything else happens. But anyway, there is a solution for this problem, because since you cannot tune this behavior in kernel space, what you can do is you can do something in user space. And that's exactly what early OOM is. It's a user space daemon that monitors your RAM and kills the most memory consuming process before it's too late. And it's really a well-made project, and an interesting one for sure. And I suggest you check out the GitHub page. I'll link it in the chat right now, if you have a system that's more constrained on memory. So the story here is that Fedora 32 will release with early OOM installed by default, which is a great thing. I mean, it will kill something, some process when you're out of RAM, but it's better than having your whole system freeze. Anyway, as always, Fedora likes to pioneer new technologies. So the latest beta of Fedora 32 already includes this, and if you're interested, again, check it out for yourself. You can install it right now in your system. There's just follow the README in the project's GitHub page. That's github.com/rfjacob with a K /early0om. You'll find the link in the chat. Moving on to the next news, version 3.36 of the GNOME email client Geary recently released. We talked on a previous episode about how GNOME is trying to make Geary the new default email client, replacing Evolution. Now, I still use Evolution on my machines every day, because of the extensive amount of features and useful features and the overall stability of the application. Also, the integration with multiple accounts and calendars and all that nice stuff is just something that, I cannot live without it. So, still, I think that some things can be done in for an email client. Evolution, graphically speaking, is a mess. The UI isn't great. The styling is old, and the interface is really cluttered with many buttons that you mostly never use. So it's great to see that there's still work going on in Geary, so that it possibly at some point will get on par with Evolution, just with a better UI. And about everything else that's not the UI, Geary already uses the same backend that Evolution uses. So functionality-wise, they should have the same things. Not everything is exposed to the user, of course, but we're probably slowly getting there. So the new features and new highlights of this new 3.36 version of Geary are a new composer, so that's great. Drag and drop images in the composer to quickly attach them. Again, pretty handy feature. Conversations can now be opened in a new window, and that's great, particularly if you have like long mailing list conversations and you just don't want to use the full-fledged window of the email client to read through that. New keyboard shortcuts based on control that are more in line with the wider GNOME shortcuts in general. And application-wide notification preferences. So, Geary was already pretty usable. I've used it on and off in the recent years or so. But again, I keep getting back to Evolution because there's still a lot of work to do in Geary to make it on par with Evolution. And I hope to see this project keep moving forward. And I hope that at some point I will just uninstall Evolution from my system and just be happy to use Geary. Anyway, moving on to the next news of today, the Arc GTK theme is backed live, kind of. So, in a previous episode, we talked about how the Arc GTK theme, one of the most popular, if not the most popular, third-party GTK theme out there, is searching for new maintainers. And you guys in the chat actually already told me about the new actively maintained fork of the theme. So I just wanted to bring you, a formal update on that. So GitHub user JNSH forked the popular Arc theme, and it's now actively working on it. With their objective being, quote, keep the theme updated with the new toolkit and desktop environment versions, resolve pre-existing issues, and improve and polish the theme while preserving the original visual design. So, great job. This was really something that I hoped it would come at some point, and it did. And I'm really thankful that the community is able to pick these projects up and keep maintaining them, mostly because the Arc theme and is the base for I don't want to say most, but many other themes out there. So many other themes are based on Arc. So if Arc goes away, these other themes are probably gonna go away as well. And the news that the project continued is really just great. So work has already started to adapt the theme to GNOME 336, and full compatibility should be expected soon. Again, great to see such a loved project continue on. That's the power of open source. I'll never get tired of saying that. I just love to see these kind of things. Anyway, guys, that was the last news for today. That was a short one. Anyway, so thank you very much for watching, guys. I really hope you liked it. If you did, press the thumbs up button down there. Join the TechPills community. You'll find the QR codes on the side, as well as on techpills.technology/community to join the Discord server, the Telegram group, or the Telegram channel. Also, make sure to, again, I already said that, sorry. Make sure to join the community. It's really great. It's a place where we can hang out. Again, guys, thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one.